Hi folks, HR Funk here, with another installment in my bullet velocity versus barrel length series, and so far these videos have proven to be very popular with all of you, and hopefully today's video is no different. This time around we're going to be looking at what quite possibly is my favorite overall hunting cartridge, and that's the 44 Magnum. I have been using the 44 Magnum for hunting for probably 35 years now, and it has never let me down. In fact, as long as I've done my job well, it's always impressed me as to just how effective it is. And we're going to be looking at it just as we have in past videos by firing it through firearms with different length barrels to see just what happens to the velocity when we get to longer and longer tubes for that bullet to pass through. Now, since it's become so popular with all of you to see the accuracy results as well as the velocity results, once again, I'm going to be showing those, but I always have to add the caveat, that's really just for fun because it's just what I'm able to achieve on a certain day under given conditions when I'm working with this velocity test. In any case, I'm going to be shooting once again at 25 yards, so we'll be looking at the velocity that's the muzzle velocity of each of the firearms I use, and we'll be looking at the 25-yard accuracy. Now, I've mentioned this before and I want to say it again, this is not the best way to go about testing accuracy by changing barrel lengths. The best way would be to start out with a long barrel and then fire it with the exact same ammunition and incrementally shorten it and then refire it and retest it to see just exactly how the velocity changes through the exact same barrel as it gets shorter and shorter. But I'm going to be doing it the way I always have by shooting it through different firearms, and I'll introduce you to those firearms here in a moment. And when I do that, the nice thing is you get real-world results from actual production-grade firearms, which don't always jive with what you might expect. And there are times where you could shoot the same ammunition through two what appear to be identical firearms, same manufacturer, same model, etc., and get slightly different velocity results. We're going to see a little bit of that in today's video, but before I get to that point, let me introduce you to the firearms I'm going to be using. Here before me on the bench are the firearms that I'm going to be using in today's test. And before I start to introduce them, I have to say that I used to have a lot more firearms chambered for the 44 Magnum cartridge, and I wish I still had some of those, but over the years through attrition they have faded away. I used to have firearms with barrels as short as 3 inches. I had some in-between lengths like 5 inches and 7.5 inches. I had a Thompson Center Contender with a 12-inch barrel. I really wish I still had that one for this test. But the ones you see here pretty well represent the common handgun lengths that you can find chambered for the 44 Magnum cartridge, and I think they're going to give a pretty good representation of what you can expect from the different barrel lengths. Beginning with my Smith & Wesson Model 629 mountain gun. This is one of my all-time favorite revolvers. I really like this wheel gun. Typically, I shoot this with a warm-loaded 44 Special, which is my favorite cartridge to use with this revolver, but in the video, I'm going to be testing it with full-power 44 Magnum ammunition. In front of it is my 6-inch Model 629. Over here on the side, we have an 8 3/8-inch 629 as modified by Magnaport International, and back here in the back is my 20-inch barreled Marlin Model 1894 SS. This is obviously going to be the longest barrel, and we'll see if it yields the highest velocity. The ammunition for today's test is Remington 240 grain jacketed soft points. This is some older ammunition that I've had laying around for a while, but it is factory ammunition, and I'm going to be testing the velocity once more with the Garmin chronograph that you see right here. As you'll see in today's video, I am once again going to be using the Ransom multi-caliber steady rest for my velocity and accuracy testing, and particularly when testing accuracy, I have found this to be an outstanding product. I have a full review on the multi-caliber steady rest. If you missed that, it's still up on the channel. Go back and check it out. But since I recorded that video, Ransom International has sent me a couple of accessories, and I wanted to mention those before I go any further. The first is the V-sock that you see right here. This does a couple of things. When we put it on the multi-caliber steady rest, once I get it stretched over here, it adds additional padding for when you're resting your firearm here, and also we see that it covers this area on the back of the V-block So if you place your firearm all the way up against there to help steady it, it's not going to get scratched or scuffed under recoil when it moves. So that's a nice addition. Also, this is their high density pad right here. And one of the things that I like about that is it's a little more firm than the pad that came on here to begin with. So I just like that. I feel like I'm getting locked in a little bit better. I don't get quite as much of a cushiony effect underneath there, allowing the firearm to potentially move. So that's another great accessory that they included when they shipped me the VSOC. The final accessory I want to point out for the multi-caliber steady rest is what Ransom International calls the small V block, and this block is shorter from top to bottom than the one that was here before, and at the bottom of the V it is also wider. This is intended for use with handguns that have a weapon-mounted light, as you see here on my Tizosh Raider. The idea is with the shorter block and that wider V, you can position the handgun properly with the weapon-mounted light installed and still be able to get the proper orientation for shooting at your target. For more information about the multi-caliber steady rest and any of these accessories, check out the Ransom International website and you'll be able to find out about all of these and all the other products that they have there. So without further delay, let's head out to the range and see some results. First up is going to be the Model 629 mountain gun with its 4-inch barrel. Let's see how it did. I think the mountain gun acquitted itself pretty well in that velocity test. The average velocity for 3 shots was 1,304 feet per second, and I don't think I mentioned it before, but the rated velocity for that Remington ammunition is 1,220 feet per second. So even out of the 4-inch barrel, the mountain gun was exceeding the rated velocity by 84 feet per second. That translates to a muzzle energy of 907 foot-pounds, so nearly half a ton of muzzle energy out of that short 4-inch tube with the factory ammunition. I think that's pretty good. Let's take a quick look at the target as soon as I get it in front of the camera. And here's a look at the 3-shot group from the mountain gun fired at that distance of 25 yards. And center to center, these 3 shots are right at 2 inches. I think that's pretty good coming from the 4-inch barrel with a relatively short sight radius. Now these shots are hitting high, and as I said a little while ago, this revolver is sighted for the 44 special load that I typically carry in it. So with the full power 240 grain 44 Magnum ammo, it's hitting, maybe 3 inches high. I'm aiming dead center in the target right here when I'm shooting at that distance. Reason being, it's pretty easy to center the front sight. I can't really see this red 1-inch circle here very well from that distance, but I can see the large white area here surrounded by the dark blue area, and I'm just trying to center my sight top to bottom and right to left as best I can. And I'm hitting, as I said, a little high, but still a 2-inch group at that distance out of this revolver I think is pretty darn good. Next up is the 6-inch Model 629. This is my workhorse 44 Magnum revolver. This is the one when I'm looking at shooting full power 44 Magnum ammunition for anything where I don't want an optic, or for some reason I don't want a rifle length firearm. This is the one that I reach for. It has the strengthening enhancements that Smith & Wesson added circa 1990 or so. This revolver was actually built in about 1995, and it's a good one. Let's head out to the range and see how it did. That was kind of an unexpected result coming from the 6-inch 629. The average velocity was actually a little less than we saw with the 4-inch mountain gun. And this is that variability that I was talking about at the beginning of the video, where you can have two very similar firearms that give different velocities than you would expect. And in this case, we actually had a longer barrel that came in with a slightly slower average velocity. The average velocity with the 6-inch 629 was 1,289 feet per second, which translates to 885 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. That's 15 feet per second slower on average than we saw with the 4-inch mountain gun. Now, had I used different cartridges than the three that I just happened to randomly select, we might have seen a difference there, because really this is within the variation of one cartridge to the next, and maybe I just happened to grab the three slightly hotter cartridges that I fired through the 4-inch mountain gun and three that were not quite as hot and fired them through the 6-inch 629. That's really not a problem. It's a 1% decrease in velocity, but overall, I'm not too concerned about that. We still have 885 foot-pounds of energy, and that's going to be fine for anything that I want to use this revolver for. As we saw with the 4-inch mountain gun, the 3-shot group from the 629 6-inch printed a little bit high, but it printed high for a different reason. This revolver I have sighted in for a distance of 50 yards for hunting purposes, so I expected it was going to hit a little bit high at that distance of 25 yards. In retrospect, I wish I had gone with a 6 o'clock hold down here at the bottom of the target, but again, I was trying to center the sight top to bottom and right to left in this white area to get the best accuracy that I could, and the accuracy again was pretty good. Even with the iron sights of this revolver, this group came in at 2.5 inches center to center, so I'm getting good accuracy at that distance of 25 yards, even though the first two revolvers that I used are featuring iron sights as opposed to an optic or some other type of sighting system. On we go to the 8 3/8 inch Model 629. This one, as I said in the opening, was customized by Magnaport International. It is a ported barrel. It has the Magnum porting here at the end of the barrel. Magnaport added the optic that you see here. This is a, what is this thing? This is a Burris 2-power scope that is mounted to the 629. Also, Magnaport refinished this revolver. It has a very nice bead blast finish, and last they polished the hammer and the trigger and the screws. So it's a very nice looking revolver. Let's head out to the range and see how it shoots. Out of the 8 3/8 inch revolver, the 3 shots that I fired had an average velocity of 1,342 feet per second. This is a 53 foot per second increase over what we saw with the 6-inch 629, and it is a 38 foot per second increase over what we saw with the 4-inch mountain gun. And I have no idea what type of powder Remington might have used in this ammunition. It seems like in revolver length barrels, it's pretty well topping out here. We didn't see a great increase in velocity with the longer 8 3/8 inch barrel, and as I said a little while ago, we actually saw a velocity reduction from the 4-inch to the 6-inch barrel. So it really seems like we're maximizing it in that area of about 4 to 6 inches, and we're not getting that much more out of the longer tube. Now, if different powder was used, if there was a slower burning powder, I'm sure we would see greater and greater velocity with the longer and longer barrels, but we're just not seeing it with this particular powder that was used by Remington back in the day. The scope on the long-barreled 629 is also zeroed for a distance of 50 yards, and again, I was holding dead center in the target, and when I fired, the group printed about the same distance over my point of aim that we saw with the 6-inch revolver. But we also here see the real advantage of the magnified optic and firing from that steady hold on the Ransom multi-caliber steady rest. This group, center to center for 3 shots, is just over 1 inch. It is 1 1/8 inch, and 2 shots almost went through the exact same hole from that distance of 25 yards. So I think that's pretty impressive for the accuracy that we're seeing out of this particular handgun. Last but certainly not least is my Marlin Model 1894 SS. Since it became legal in Ohio to use rifles like this for hunting deer, I don't handgun hunt with the 44 Magnum all that much anymore. This is the one that I reach for most commonly when deer season rolls around, and it works very, very well for that purpose. Let's head out to the range and see how it did when I was testing the velocity with that Remington 44 Magnum ammunition. You might have picked up on the fact that there was an issue when I was testing velocity out of the 1894 SS for this video. And no, I did not have 3 velocities out of this rifle that were exactly the same. In fact, I only had 1 velocity reading for the 3 shots that I fired. So I just put that in each segment to put something there. I've wondered for a while what was going to happen when I had a firearm cartridge combination that was right at that cutoff point of 1700 feet per second with the Garmin chronograph, and we found out today it does have some issues getting proper readings when you're right in that velocity range. I did get the one though, and I can use that to at least be able to say that when we put that 44 Magnum load in a rifle length barrel, it is no joke. At 1711 feet per second, that is a muzzle energy of 1,560 pounds. So we're at 3/4 of a ton of muzzle energy that we're getting out of this barrel with that 44 Magnum ammo. That translates to 369 feet per second over and above what we saw out of the 8 3/8 inch 629, which is a 27% increase, and it's a 31% increase out of what we saw over the 4-inch 629 mountain gun. I've always found the accuracy of the 44 Magnum cartridge to be very good out of virtually anything I've fired it from, and the 1894 SS is no exception. These 3 shots from 25 yards went into a group that is 1 1/4 inches center to center. I think that's outstanding, and part of that comes from the use of the KRA receiver sight that you see right here. I reviewed this a while back. This is an outstanding sight. It gives you a very fine sight picture, and obviously the accuracy that you can attain with it is also very good. Before we wrap things up today, I want to make one more point about the Ransom multi-caliber steady rest, and that is that I averaged the accuracy results of all 3 revolvers that I was shooting from this rest during the video, and the average for 3 shots at 25 yards came out to less than 2 inches. In fact, the average was 1 7/8 inches at that distance of 25 yards, which just goes to demonstrate exactly how well the Ransom steady rest works. Especially if you're doing site work or load development, this is a great tool. As I said before, go by the Ransom International website for more information. And that's pretty much going to do it for my 44 Magnum versus barrel length video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments about this video, as always, make sure you forward those to me. I also, again, want to say a special thanks to the folks at Broken Lock Long Rifles. That's where I recorded this video. If you're in North Central Ohio and you're looking for a place to shoot, check out the website for Broken Lock Long Rifles. They're located in northern Wayne County, Ohio. It's a great place to shoot with a lot of good activities going on there. Also, make sure you check out my website, hrfunk.com. Look at the news and information page to see all the latest things that are going on with me and the channel, and go by the product page because a lot of the products that I've reviewed here on the channels have links to the manufacturers on that page, and underneath some of those links is some information that'll save you some money if you decide to make a purchase. See you next time, folks, and until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.